Today, I'm delighted to welcome Becca Gardner to the podcast. Becca is a coach, podcast host, and founder of A Missing Piece. After years of trying to fix, manage, and improve her own mind, she experienced a profound shift through the understanding that our well-being is never actually lost. It's simply covered up when our thinking feels real. She trained with Dr. Amy Johnson and now shares this understanding through coaching, her podcast, Wellbeing radio show, and Insight Timer, helping people discover more peace, clarity, and resilience without relying on techniques or endless self-improvement. Becca, welcome to Wave Work Stress Goodbye.
Oh, thank you, Luke. Thank you for having me.
No,
I'm excited.
pleasure's all mine. So, for people hearing about you for the first time, can you tell us a little bit about your own journey? So, what was life like before you came across such understanding and what changed for you?
Okay, I was kind of on a bit of a journey for many, many years. I think if we go back quite far to the age of 4, I would probably have been described as a bit of a worrier. I always needed reassurance. Um, I felt quite anxious as a child, although I wouldn't have called it that at the time. It just felt like I had a very, very busy brain. And I spent many years, round about, I think it was my late 20s, that I started seeking for support around trying to quieten my mind, to be honest. On the outside, I looked really quite confident, but I realized that anxiety came up in lots of different sort of forms. And whilst I could stand on a stage or perform in a play, I just worried a lot about things that could go wrong. And so I went to the doctors in my early 30s and had a conversation and had a bit of traditional counselling. And at the time, it was useful to talk about it, very, very useful. And I did lots of different techniques to kind of calm my mind, but it just didn't help. And then before I even came into the work that I do now, I worked in banking and in finance. And so I spent a lot of my life before I had children working pretty hard in stressful environments. And I think finance became my thing because it meant that my brain had something to do. Because I'll be honest with you, I don't know how I fell into that because it's just of no interest to me really, but I think I loved the idea that this very busy brain had something to do. And when I had my children in my early 30s, I stopped corporate work and had a little bit of time out and helped my husband in his business doing a bit of finance. And I noticed that my thinking just ramped up. And at the time, I wouldn't have said my thinking ramped up. I just would have said that I just felt terrible. Like I felt really anxious. I felt like I had a ton of responsibility. I had lots of physical symptoms. And my journey started doing lots more one-to-one therapy, counseling, hypnotherapy, you name it. Anything that you could physically Google to support you, to calm your mind, I would have done. And I remember one particular time, Luke, where I went to see a psychologist and she said to me, I don't think I can help you. I think it's going to be a lot deeper than what I can support you with. I'm going to have to refer you to somebody higher than me. And I remember leaving that appointment thinking, oh my gosh, I thought I was really broken. And now I feel absolutely like unfixable. That was the feeling. And I remember that journey home. And I'm kind of grateful for that journey home because there was something in me, which I'm sure we'll come back to, that that went, no, I'm not taking that. I'm not going to see somebody higher up in psychology telling me that I'm broken because I had a sense that there was something more to all of this. And so I started looking online further afield than the UK and just really getting a flavour. And that's the beauty, isn't it, of being in this world now because we have access to all this information. And a long story short, I stumbled across Dr. Amy Johnson, and she had a school that I could join for 6 weeks. And I threw myself in that and noticed that things were starting to change. I was beginning to be introduced to how I worked as a human being. And the rest is history because there was absolutely no way that I could have gone back into financial services, because I'd stumbled across something that had changed my life. And so I knew quite quickly that I was going to then be a voice for other people that have anxiety or anything really. And so I trained with Dr. Amy Johnson, and here I am.
Ah,
So it's a bit of a whistle-stop tour of my life there, Luke, from four.
no, wonderful start. And I know we've only been talking for a matter of minutes, but I can relate to a lot of what you've said there. Um, I was a project manager for 7 years, and towards the end of that, I got quite mentally sick myself, and I went to the doctor because a lot of my family was pushing me to go on antidepressants. This wasn't that long ago, actually. This was like 2023, 2024, something like that. And I didn't when I went to the doctor about it, I didn't think I needed antidepressants. There was a little bit something in me which told me I wasn't broken as well. And thankfully, the GP agreed with me about it, and which was quite refreshing because you think GPs answers to everything are, and there's a lot of listeners who can probably relate to this as well because I'm sure that listeners who are stressed have also been to the GP so to discuss antidepressants. And as I say, the GP agreed with me and just told me he didn't think I needed them, and that kind of did a lot for me because there was a little bit of me in there that agreed with him on that, and the fact that he said it kind of changed everything because I could have easily hung on to a thought of, oh, I need antidepressants. The doctor saying, yes, you need antidepressants, signing up and giving it me. And who knows what rabbit hole I'd gone down from that particular point. Um, so yeah, I say being stressed in a project management position in a corporate world, I can completely relate to what you've just said there.
Yeah, I mean, I do sometimes think back and think how how my experience of working in corporate would be now with this
Yeah.
understanding. I think it would be significantly different. I'm not going to go and test it because I love doing what I do, but I do have this passion to reach those people that work, just in really, really busy environments and they have home life too, because that's the thing. You know, when I was in my 20s, I only had to think about, rocking home and watching Coronation Street, making my dinner and watching Hollyoaks and just going
Yeah,
out drinking.
those were the
But,
days.
those were the days. Those
Yeah.
were the days. And I just think, now there's just so many different things to do. I'm a mum as well, and there's so many different roles. And there's something about this understanding that just, as you know, just shifts something for people that enables them to be more present and less absorbed in the mind that is quite scary, really.
Yeah, I love it how you said earlier about when you was helping in your husband's business and you noticed that your thinking had ramped up quite excessively. And I bet at that point for you, it was a little bit like, oh, what's going on here? And the fact you noticed it was great, but maybe you noticed it in a way at the time of, oh, this isn't good. But now as time has gone on, if your thinking ramps up now, it's more like, oh, what's that? Oh, it's just that rampant thinking again.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. It really feels that simple now. But at the time, I think I'd kept myself so busy with work and career. I'd been one of these people that had really wanted to do the best I could in my career. So I did every exam under the sun. And I think I kept myself super busy and I distracted myself. Um, and I think because I was distracting myself, obviously, as we know, that isn't sustainable, it's knackering. But because I distracted myself, I didn't really hear my mind so much. But I think when I just did a few hours for my husband and then went home and was thinking about what to feed my kids and weaning and all of those sorts of things that come with parenthood, my mind was like, what are we going to do? It was almost like if it could talk, it was like, right, I need to cause some trouble here. And that's what it felt like. My mind just went haywire. And not understanding that's what minds do meant that I believed everything my mind said and I felt rotten.
Yeah, yeah. You take me right back to my experience again as well. It's like I can completely relate to what you just said about, being at work and being distracted and then going home and thinking about kids and what they need for tea. I was there as well. Like I was quite at first when I was a project manager, having to be distracted doing the job. And then I started that distraction when my wife was pregnant with my oldest, and then when my oldest came, and when my second came, doing a very stressful corporate job while looking at kids, my mind was going doing cartwheels basically, and
Yeah.
I really struggled to cope with that at the time because my thinking was that rapid. Um, I took my thoughts extremely seriously, and I was off sick, signed off sick twice. I was signed off sick in 2022. Then I went back to work and was signed off again in 2023. And it, hindsight's a wonderful thing. Looking back, it was just thinking. I couldn't. I can't really no, no talking what we're talking about. I can't really blame the job or blame kids for my crazy thought system. But in the moment, at the time, it's very difficult to see that. But seeing it changes everything.
Oh, yeah. And I think when you just say that, then it really feels really simple. That there's just a real disconnection from that. You called it a thought system. I really like
Yeah.
that. Like that thought system. It's like now I observe it rather than think that's me and that's everything. That's my reality because that's what it felt like. As you were talking, it reminded me of a time that I was having a lot of heart palpitations. And I was convinced that I was dying of some kind of heart problem, right? And it's obviously something that you don't want to dismiss if you've got heart palpitations. So it always makes sense to go to a doctor and get it checked out. But I also wasn't taking even the doctor's answers as the truth. I thought there must be missing something. There's something wrong with me. And at that point, I had no idea the connection between thought and feeling. And it sounds simple now, but really, as we're talking, going back into that old version of me, I was just doing the best I could. And I've got so much compassion for that. But I think through the work that we both do, it's really like inviting people to see that before we did, really. And that's what I love about coaching and speaking about this inside out understanding of life.
Yeah.
It's incredible. It's a game, it's life changing.
Yeah, I mean the illusion of life is really compelling as well. So it's no wonder we fall for it. I mean, as explained to you off the recording about the car situation, I'm getting kind of anxious and stressed because I've got a recording with you, and what if the kids come in, and it seems silly now because they're not here. So it seems like a waste of time for me to worry about children walking through the door and interrupting our recording because now the moment's here, they're not even in the house. But I was making thoughts of, me and Libby going to walk into the room and interrupt, so I've got to do all this editing on the recording because of that. And it's not happened. It just seems like a waste of time and so silly now. But when I was thinking it, it seems so real. That's what I was going to have to do. And that sounds silly, but there's a lot um, more scenarios of thinking thoughts that are more darker and scary than when kids going through the door, and we fall for it each and every time. And like you say, it's about having empathy not just for ourselves, but for other people that are falling for it as well. And that's no easy thing, but noticing changes everything.
It does, and I think it's like you just said. Even though you can be living and breathing this understanding, there's going to be times
Yeah,
that you get wrapped up in your thinking, and I think it's really cool that you like share that because I do that too. It's just really human. It's part of our human design to fall asleep to the fact that you're taking your thinking seriously. But like you described it twice as it being silly, it does feel silly when you know. But I guess that if you have no idea how much your thoughts create your reality, it doesn't look silly. It looks like the absolute goddamn truth, doesn't it?
yeah. I don't know about you as well, but I always think because we do what we do, I think I'm quite hard on myself. I think I should know better than to fall for that. I
Yeah.
don't know. Knowing what I know, I guess sometimes I fall in the trap of thinking I'm a superhuman or something like that. But no, I'm just human like everybody else, and you are, and we
Yeah.
all fall for it, like I just said.
Yeah. It's true. It's true. And it's not about never falling for it. It's
Yeah,
like, it's
recognize
just
it.
appreciating. Yeah, it's recognizing it, isn't it? But from my experience, I don't know about you, but I feel like I fall for it less and I'm in it less time. And going back to how I used to be, that to me is like absolute gold dust. If somebody had offered me that 10 years ago and said to me, right, you're just going to believe your thinking sometimes and then you're going to realize and be really present again. It's just, it's amazing. It really, really is.
It's like for me, best metaphor I can describe. It's like life's cheat code. You remember when you back in the 90s where we had Segas and PlayStations, and you press this button, press that button, and then a cheat would happen, and then you'd kind of like be able to do the game better. It's like I see life when you know misunderstanding in the same way. If you understand that thought is just a transient thing that's just flying past, it has no roots, no anchorage. That's like life's cheat code. You've just done you use the joypad and enter the cheat code and you've got away with it. If you don't take
Yeah.
if you don't take it too seriously. Does that make sense?
It makes complete sense. I grew up with a Commodore 64. I'm probably a little bit older than you, Luke. A Commodore 64, and then I had
An
a
Amiga.
Nintendo. Both of my
And
kids.
did you have an Amiga as well? I did. My first console was like a PC Amiga style. Then I got a Sega and a PlayStation. I think this is in the mid 90s. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm an 81. I was born in 81, and my kids both love games, so I can really relate to what you're saying. That's so true. And I think something that I've seen more and more is that we're here to experience life in all, like in every single way. And so I think if the cheat code was our absolute experience 24/7, we wouldn't have contrast. And I think we learn in contrast that when we notice that we get caught up, it then highlights when we don't get caught up. If we never got caught up, it would become our norm and we just wouldn't learn. So I think we're here to experience that humanness as well. And I can really relate to what you said there about you, that superhuman. I went through that stage about a year ago where I used to get frustrated with myself when I was almost getting caught up in stuff. And now I'm at a point where it's all welcome and it's not about getting this right. It's just about meeting life where it is and just doing what makes sense in each and every moment.
yeah, and like you, I do go through it less, and I think that's the big one for me. You said that you're in it for less time. That's a big one for me as well. I'm definitely not. If I do fall into it, I'm not in it as long as I used to be. I don't know. Around the time I first had my kids, 5, 6, 7 years ago, yeah, fall into it more often, in it more often, to the point of being in bed at night, in it, trying to sleep at night. I very rare I go to bed now, and I've thoughts going in my mind, but before misunderstanding and being more aware, I'd been at all times of the day, even trying to get to sleep at night, and even waking up first thing in the morning. I don't. I Thankfully I rarely have that now.
Yeah. And I think that's worth remembering, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
it's not until you go back on your own journey that you realize how different it
Oh
is,
crikey, yeah,
When it's not until someone starts asking me questions, I'm like, gosh, wow, I actually feel like a different person. I don't feel like that same person. I think there was a Becca that was there before that was coming through. And when I was like, I don't know, eating dinner with friends or doing something really fun, I was present and I was basically not identified with my thinking. And that feels like I came through then. And I feel like I'm so much more of that now, if that makes sense. Like
yes,
those, I got glimpses of me before. It wasn't like I'm a completely different person, but now I feel like that is predominantly the foundation of how I rock up in life, with the odd time it's caught up. The as years ago it was the other way around.
and it's see it in the kids as well. Like 1 minute they're in it and worried about something, and 10 minutes later, especially when they're talking with amongst each other, fighting like cat and dog at one point, and then 10 minutes later they're like the best friends. Like I guess like how can that happen? But I guess they're experiencing how life should be experienced, whereas they're in the moment, and then something else has come along, and then they're in that moment, and they're not really worrying about what happened 10 minutes before. I guess as adults we experience what we experience, kind of remembered, oh, 10 minutes ago I was feeling like this, and we struggle to let that feeling 10 minutes ago drop, whereas kids are a lot better at it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, my kids have been my biggest teachers. Like, parenting fascinates me. I've got a real interest in that whole opportunity, really, to see and kind of observe the kids and the way they move through emotions. And yeah, like you said, it's almost like as adults, we've kind of learned to hold on to stuff. Like if you
Yeah.
wake up rubbish and then it's like midday and you're feeling all right, rather than being with the all right feeling like, oh, but felt awful this morning. How can I feel okay now? I know that isn't necessarily the narrative, but there's this invisible thread that we don't talk about is that we think it defines our whole day, and we just don't work like that.
Oh, absolutely. Like you just described about the feeling bad first thing in the morning and by lunchtime, afternoon, feeling okay. I can guarantee someone having that exact day, if they came home from their day and then their partner or spouse or boyfriend or girlfriend said, "How was your day, love?" They'd probably go, "Oh, it was terrible." They'd probably mention about the bad experience from the morning, but probably conveniently ignore the good from lunchtime and good in the afternoon. I think as human beings, we crave that goodness all day. So we can only say we had a good day if the morning started well, the lunch made it even better, and afternoon was even better as well. If there was a little bit of bad in there, it's like, oh, it was a terrible day.
Yeah, we always lean towards the negative. That's so, so
Yeah,
true. That's so true. Yeah, it's interesting because I think the older we are, the more we get conditioned away from who we are, don't we?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I love the missing piece title in your. Is the missing piece the name of your podcast? Is that right? Um,
No, so so no, my podcast is called, sorry, The Thought Trap.
the Thought
Um,
Trap. Okay.
the yeah, that's
Ah, is
my
the missing piece the
yes.
title of your coaching practice?
It is indeed, yes.
Ah,
It
that's
kind of
good. My
un
note, my note's a bit
the
obscure,
missing
but
piece.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Um, I love the title. How did that name come about, and what does the missing piece mean for people? If you can elaborate.
Yeah, I'd love to. I remember trying to think of a name of a business, like when I first started my coaching practice. And this is the biggest example of that we can't think our way through something and a decision. And I remember going for a shower and it literally came to me because it was like I was searching for a missing piece in my journey of wellness because I literally was like, I think I could have won an award for being the biggest seeker ever. So it was like I found my missing piece, as in PIECE, like a jigsaw piece. And then I basically that was what I was missing, peace of mind. So it kind of had that word peace had two sort of meanings, and it just made complete sense. And it also, I feel like it's got lots of meaning because I think people think there's a piece missing that they're looking for as well. Like I think we externalize the answers and we think there's something outside of us that's going to make us feel okay when we have it all.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing as well. So that kind of felt like it organically grew my coaching practice, really. And then when it came to my podcast, I looked for the missing piece, and there was like a gazillion podcasts called The Missing Piece. And I thought to myself, do you know what? The amount of times that I'll say to people, it's peace, spelled Peace. And I thought, I'm not going to do that. Like, what is it? And I asked myself, or I asked, and my intention was set, what is it that I felt? And I felt like I was trapped in thinking. So that's how the thought trap was born.
And it's interesting for me how you say it came to you in the shower. The amount, if I had a pound for every time I heard someone say this came to me in the shower, and it's true, isn't it? Because that happens to me as well. And when I'm in my quietest in my mind, that's when the best ideas come to my brain. And then you're frustrated because you're in the shower, can't do anything about it at the time. Like, oh, that's a good idea. I need to sort myself out first and get dressed. Um, but yeah, many of my listeners are, as you know, leaders, managers, and corporate professionals. And I'm sure you've had clients before that have come to you and given you a story about their stress and anxiety and depression is coming from the job. How do you subtly point people to the right direction of their missing piece without saying being all blah, like, oh, it's just your thinking? Because when I talk to people about it, I always think I'm treading on eggshells a little bit because I don't want to come across as insulting to them. Because if they don't understand what you're saying, then they could possibly see it that way. How do you approach that situation with corporate professionals who might be in the illusion that something outside of them is affecting them inside?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I wish there was like a one-liner for that, but there really is just there really is such an organic conversation that unfolds. That's the first thing I would say. I meet all sorts of walks of life, and some of my clients have worked in that field where they've been so busy and it really looks like they need to leave their job, because if they don't leave their job then they're going to be stressed to heaven for the rest of their lives. So what I tend to do is meet people where they are, and I think what's so important I've learned through being a coach is not disregarding anyone's experience, even though I know that people's experience is created through thoughts and feelings in any given moment. If they have no understanding of this at all, then, like you say, it can come across as being disregarding of what they're going through. So I meet people where they are really, and we talk about what it is they're experiencing. And I guess as a coach, what I do is point to that rather than telling them it's their thinking, it's to kind of use everyday examples to get them to be super curious that actually, what if, like getting them to see that their experience is always changing. Like, and what's so useful if people come in and see me and it's work that's stressing them out, what we tend to do is perhaps look in a different direction and actually talk about things like playing a game of golf, or watching the football, or being with their kids when they're not talking about areas that feel sticky for them. They're more open to see how their experience of life is created. And sometimes, even if that's hard, they observe in others. So I tend to spend time inviting people to peep, and in short, that's just have a cheeky look. So I invite people to kind of do experiments in their own life. And PEEP stands for play, experiment, experience, play. And that's all this is. There's no techniques. There's just about you kind of metaphorically putting on a lab jacket, going into your own life and just looking to see what looks true. And so it feels like, and I'm sure you can relate to this, Luke, like you're just having a chat. Like I said,
Yeah.
I'll say to people, like, do not underestimate that actually this conversation that we're having can really change things. But what I want people to do is to kind of put to one side what they know to be true at the moment and come on a bit of a curiosity journey with me. So I think it's just a mixture of conversation and me asking questions that enable them to consider that it might be different to what they kind of thought it was.
And I bet
Does that
you've,
answer your
yeah,
question?
it does. I was going to say, I bet when you have sessions with people that, you're having a conversation with them, they're giving you their story, like this is really, really affecting me. And then the conversation might move on about golf, like you say, or football. And then they're still sat with you, and the feeling will feel different for them, and they'll think it's because they're talking about football and golf, but they think,
Yeah,
but the reality is their thinking has changed. They're still sat talking to you. Their stressful job is still waiting for them. Yeah, they don't feel it anymore. But
yeah,
the misunderstanding is they think it's a talk about football and golf that's calming them down, which is actually their thinking, irrespective of football, golf, and work stress or their work environment.
yeah. And I think yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the biggest things that comes to mind for me is that most people that are stressed out at work are awake at night thinking about work.
Mm.
That's a common theme. And when we really look at that and we kind of like really put that on the table, so to speak, and really explore together, we're like, so when you're lying in bed at 3 o'clock in the morning and work's rolling around, you're feeling really stressed, you're not actually in work. So what's creating your stress in that moment? And it's like, well, me thinking about it, and it just then it just starts to open that doorway. I think it's almost so much more powerful, as you know, than telling people if we think about work we're going to be stressed, because I still think those two things, circumstances and us as human beings, they're so joined, like we don't see it any other way. And I think our main job as a coach is really getting some space in between the
Yeah.
circumstance and our thinking. So so yeah, it's getting people to think, oh gosh, I never saw it like that.
Yeah. And
It's
the 3 o'clock in the morning, uh, thoughts and thinking that you said. The funny thing was, I used to be like that, and the funny thing was, I'd be going through the previous day at 3 o'clock in the morning and going through the day that was coming in my mind about what someone said, what I should say to them, what I should do, what I shouldn't do. And the irony was, when I started my work day at 9 a.m. and I could see what was going on, bizarrely, I felt better. And I'm not saying necessarily the situations got better at where I started, but because I was more in the moment of it and kind of using my wisdom to know what to do at those times, I kind of felt better. And again, it wasn't because anything had really changed, or if it had, it changed for the worse, if anything. But my thinking, irrespective of it all, was changing. But as we
Yeah.
say, it's very difficult to see past the illusion when you're not in the right headspace.
Yeah, that's why I love that this work kind of like just happens after sessions as well. Like that's what I love about this. And like what you just said then, I just like there's this like this wave of like passion that comes through me as you talk, and I'm like, oh my God, if I'd have known that future Becca could have dealt with things in the moment and I didn't have to think about it ahead of time, I would have like saved loads of time. But it didn't look like that was kind of happening. Like you say, when you're in the moment, you know what to do because wisdom only comes in real time, not at 3 o'clock in the morning.
No,
And that's why it feels so decombobulating, for lack of a better word, because when you're lying awake at 3 o'clock in the morning, you're never going to get a solution because it's not happening. And we can't resolve in imagination.
no. We pride ourselves on intellect, don't we? We're very, from the get-go, from infant school and junior school and secondary school, it's all about intellect. Like life's taught us in, you need intellect to work out this problem, and it kind of makes sense for a maths equation. You probably need your intellect to kind of work out. Wisdom might not get you there. You probably need a method to work out that sum, but not everything needs intellect to be dealt with. Sometimes you just need the space to fly in, to be able to think, that was the right thing to do all along. And I was guilty of that. I've been across this inside out understanding for almost a decade now, actually. I came across it. My father-in-law was the first person to tell me about it in 2017. And at first it was a little bit like, oh, that's interesting, but I'll just put it on the shelf over there and come back to it later, and fell into old habits in my job. And the point I'm trying to make is I'd come across the inside out understanding and this way of living life, and I got it intellectually, but I wasn't using it spiritually, if that makes sense. And
Hmm.
and it was no wonder I was awake at 3 o'clock in the morning thinking, because I got it, but at the same time I didn't get it because I wasn't seeing it in the right
Hmm.
way. You have to see rather than think it.
Yeah, me too. That was my experience. I think I had a period of time where I think I could have literally written an essay on it. Like I could have explained it really, really clearly, but I wasn't feeling it. And I think it's because we are programmed and conditioned to learn and apply. Like I see that in my own kids. Like my daughter's going into GCSE year and she's got to learn a ton of stuff and then she's going to have to do an essay. And it is application, apply, application, apply. And that's what I tend to explain a lot, you know, with clients when I work with them. Like this isn't a prescription, it's a description. So I think one of the biggest things is getting people to get used to that we're not applying this. We're not using intellect.
Absolutely, absolutely. Have you got any? We don't have to name names, of course, but have you got any inspiring stories of people you've seen where they've thought they've come to you and said, "Oh, I'm completely broken. I'm damaged goods. There's no way you can fix me." And then you've just said something simple, or you just talked to them for a little bit, and something's clicked in them, and they're a different person, and they don't fall into the old habits of, thinking intellectual, like we just discussed, or um, getting into the habits of, depression, anxiety. Like the transformation is profound, if that makes sense. Have you got any stories like that to share?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I could almost like mix them all together and as a whole, like people come in like really red. I always find that when people do come in, most of the time, the clients that I work with are really ready to see something new, right?
Yeah,
They've done the work, they've journaled, they've done the meditations, they've done it all. And I think that, I don't know, I think when people have done a lot of different things, they're ready to go, oh, it's not, I've tried all the techniques and they're not working. So I am really open now. Like I think they put down their toolkit. I think that's massive. Um, and yeah, and people have just really relaxed into my words and really not tried so hard. So I think one of the biggest things, one of the biggest transformations that I've seen was like just having a conversation with somebody and they're saying, I just don't think, I'm open, but I've been like this for so long. And I hear this a lot. Like, I've just been here, been in this situation for so long. It's going to take you a long time to make me feel better. And even just seeing that belief, because you've been on this planet for longer, then therefore you're going to need to spend more time, sort of unlearning all the stuff. And I said, it just doesn't work like that. I know in my absolute core that once they see that their thinking's creating their reality, once they see that, then everything just shifts. It's like all the hard work gets done for them. So, yeah, I mean, all my testimonials on my website that I share are pointing just all my clients' words to the fact they now feel more like themselves. They feel more at home with themselves. And I think on the whole, my clients just can feel a bit lost at the beginning, and now they don't. And I think my job is, as I work with people, sometimes they like to come back and see me every month because they just like to continue the conversation because they love it so much. They find it so relaxing. But really, my job is for them to go out in the world and not need me anymore because they
Yeah.
are their own expert. I'm not the expert, and I make that really clear at the beginning. I'm not, I don't have the answers, but they do, and I'm going to uncover those for you because one of my biggest coping mechanisms, Luke, was reassurance. So one thing that I did all the time was ask others for reassurance, and as soon as I got that reassurance, I felt better. And so I learned from an early age that everyone else has all the answers. So one of my biggest things I hear back from clients is I now feel like I can trust myself and I know what to do.
That's
And I think
wonderful.
that's huge because I
That's
think, yeah, I think it's huge.
that's wonderful, Becca. It really, really is because, as you say, everyone has all the answers. They just don't know it because of the thinking that they bring to the table about it. And I think it's interesting what you said a few minutes ago when we did the previous question or topic about how people think they need to move a job. I'm not saying, people don't need to move a job. In some circumstances they do, but sometimes the job a person is might be the right job for them other than the thinking they're bringing to it about it. It could
Yeah.
be the
Yeah.
right job for them in terms of pay, hours, childcare, all those things. But because
Mm.
of the thinking they're bringing it, it's making it more harder for them to run a job. But it might be the perfect job for them. As I say, it might not be sustainable in some respects. Maybe they do need to move on for what reason or another, but from what reason or another. But knowing what we're trying to distribute to people, it can give people an easier time in the interim period to have a better time at work and then decide what to do from there, whether they stay in a job or leave a job. But the answers are all within them. It's just helping them uncover that.
Yeah. And I think if people don't know what's creating their stress in the first place, and it really does look like the job that's creating the stress, then they're going to make decisions based on the fact they think it's the job making, causing all their discomfort. When they begin to see where that stress is coming from, where it's, originating from, then they know when to trust when clarity comes, when their thinking settles. And from that place, they make those decisions. So again, it's the way I see it, it's just kind of using this incredible human design to its benefit, the knowing that when our thinking's busy, you can't touch it with the bar, you can't trust it with the barge pole. Like you just can't. But we have such a magnetic pull when our thinking's busy and we feel really frustrated to try and fix from that place. That's what I used to do all the time. Like I used to try and make big decisions from that place. And it's like I liken it to going up to a drunk person in the street and asking them for directions when they're absolutely obliterated.
That's a great metaphor.
And that's exactly, it's just like you wouldn't do it, right? You
No.
wouldn't. You go and ask like the little old lady that lives down the road that's lived there the whole year, their whole life even. And that's what I liken it to with wisdom and the chatty mind.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a simple system when you really think about it. Why do you think people overlook the simplicity of it, if that's the word, simplicity? Why do you think people people miss that. You might have touched on it before, but I think someone who might be listening might be thinking, well, this sounds too easy, and then I know I'll do the same. After this call, I'll probably fall into the trap of my thinking and forget about this this conversation. It's going to happen. It's inevitable. Why do you? But then I'll come back. I'll get back on my bike and I won't be falling down again. Why do you think people miss the simplicity of it? It's just because of a noisy mind.
Yeah, I think the world's really busy. Like,
Yeah,
I think it's more noisy than it's ever been. I think it's noisier than it was 10 years ago. So I imagine that if I hadn't, I mean, I'm making this up, Luke, but if I hadn't come across this understanding and I'm exposed to the amount of information that's going on, the world is so small now and it's connected and there's always just information overload. And we both know how the mind works and it takes that information and it runs with it because that's its design. So it can feel a bit simple, but I think it's because we kind of been taught that things are more complicated than they are.
yeah,
I just get a sense that we overcomplicate life. Not anybody, not you or me, just as a whole. Like I think things are so much easier than we think they are. And that's why one-to-one coaching is the way forward because you almost need a handhold through that because you can know all this on certain levels, but it's not until you get in front of people like you and I that have actually been there and seen it. And we know and we've learned how to point people back to that. So I think through these podcasts and these conversations, it can seem quite simple, but I think it's like anything. Sometimes we just need to be shown.
yeah. And it's interesting about you say about how it feels really noisy at the minute. It does, and I think not blaming it because of what we're what we're saying. Nothing out there can make you feel anything in here. But I think modern life makes it harder for people to see what we're pointing to because people have social media in their faces hours and hours a day now, and it's really difficult for wisdom to come through when your brain is constantly stimulated by thoughts with something that's amplifying those thoughts as well going on. And it's interesting what you said about the shower. It's only when we kind of let our modern life, lifestyle go that we do something as simple as going in the shower, and then the wisdom comes through because we've kind of stopped doing a particular habit. Not saying, smartphones and looking at social media is what's causing our thinking of thoughts, but it's certainly not helping the thoughts drop and letting the wisdom come through.
Yeah, I just think it keeps the system really busy. I think, in
Yeah,
short, that's what it's doing. Keeping the system really busy. Because if we are in habit of thought, which is what I point to all the time, if we're in habit of thought, we don't know any different. So, no, social media can't make us feel a certain way. Wars breaking out can't make us feel a certain way, even though it looks that way. But if you've got no idea that the mind takes information in and runs with it, if you're not onto that, then you that's going to become your reality, I
yeah.
guess. And so I think the world's so busy, but my mind's the quietest it's ever been. Like genuinely, Luke, my mind has times it has stuff to say. I'm not going to lie. It's not like it switches off completely. But when I hang my washing out, I can hear the birds, and I never used to. And I know now that I'm so much more present, you know, than I used to be.
Yeah.
And it's actually giving me goosebumps as I say this, but life is really, really, really magical. And if you were to look at your phone or you look at the news, it doesn't feel like that. So this work's needed now more than ever.
Do you know what I've become a fan of, Becca? I've actually become a fan of sitting down on the sofa. Say the kids have gone to bed or it's early in the morning. Say I've got up at 5:30 and then we get up about 5:30, 6. And I come down. I've just become a fan of sitting on the sofa and just being. Just sitting and being. Not even put the radio on, not put the TV on, not even watch the pot. Just sitting down, just being. And I'd say when I was a teenager, I'd have been like, "What? I can't waste time just sitting around.
Yeah.
If I got free time, I'd rather go on the PlayStation or watch football." But I've become a bit of a fan of just sitting and being and just letting the thoughts come and thoughts go. And it's interesting what comes when you just allow yourself to be and just not
Yeah.
have stimulation going on. It really, really is.
And I think
It's become an activity for me. That's what I'm trying to say. Just sitting down.
I love that. That's so inspiring though, because me too. Like I used to have my coffee in the morning and have to be watching something or
Yeah.
doing something. Now I'm really quite happy looking in my garden. Now I thought that was just an age thing, right? I'm not going to lie, but I now know that if I spent so long running away from my thoughts and feelings that I wouldn't have been able to just be because that was uncomfortable.
Mm.
And I know
Yes.
now that being uncomfortable is okay.
Yeah, same. Same.
It's temporary.
It'd have been that uncomfortable. I'd have been like, it's boring. That's what I'm probably looking for. It comes across boring to most people, just be sat and just letting thoughts go through that. The old me would have had to do something to get rid of that boredom, but now I kind of like it. And as I say, it's even though I'm just sat doing nothing, it's an activity now. I am doing something. I'm just experiencing life, just sitting down and letting thoughts come and thoughts go. It really is
We're too
wonderful.
busy. Like we always think trying to fill our spare time, aren't we?
Yeah.
Like, no, I'm not sort of being you, but I think we've become in that sort of way of having to always fill every single gap. And I don't think you want to so much when you realize how we work as humans. I think it just doesn't make sense to do that in the same way.
No, no, absolutely not. Um, I'm just conscious of your time, so I've just got a few more closing things.
No,
So,
go for it.
what are you hoping someone listening to our recording takes away with them today? Not to say today, when they eventually listen back.
I think one of the I think one of the biggest things is realizing they're not alone. I think I felt very not alone. I always had lovely family and friends. Like I've always been very fortunate to have a network of people around me. But to realize that it's very human to have a mind that talks. And at the time, I didn't think that it was. And that was one of the biggest things I noticed when I came into the little school of big change with Dr. Amy Johnson at the time. I was hanging around other people that had this internal dialogue too. Like, I think people talk about it more than they used to. But I think one of the first things is to realize we're not alone. You have a very good, well working human design if you have a mind that talks. But I think answering your question in short, it would be to know that you don't have to be identified with that. There is so much possibility, and to keep listening to your podcast and mine. And, if it occurs to people to do one-to-one coaching with one of us, really, because, or keep absorbing yourself in this conversation because it's a game changer.
Absolutely, great. That's a great answer. Really, really, really like that. And tell us about the rest of 2026. What are you doing now? What have you done before? What have you got coming up between now and the end of the year?
So I am really trying to bring myself on social media more at the moment, Luke. I'm really trying to reach as many people as possible. I've realized that in my office in the Cotswolds, I'm not going to reach that many people. I've worked quite a lot face to face with people with the missing piece. So I have hired a room in my local natural therapy clinic and worked there. And then I've had a handful of clients online. But I'm really keen to build an online presence. I want to reach as many people as possible, which is why I started the podcast over a year ago. I developed a bespoke coaching journey called Home, which I invite people to come and have a conversation with me. The conversation is called Doorway. So, kind of standing in a doorway and really meeting me, and I'm meeting them where life is and what's important to them. And then we can go, if it makes sense, on a journey together. And whatever that looks like, I generally work with people over a minimum of 3 months, but it all depends on people, what people want. The other thing I'm really excited about, Luke, is I'm bringing some body work into my practice, a missing piece. I've just trained with Dr. Mindy Peltz, who is a hormone and metabolic health specialist for women. And I've learned how to invite people to trust their body more, trust their cycles. When I say people, that's predominantly women,
Yes.
and actually eat to their cycles and actually support perimenopausal symptoms and menopausal symptoms. But I feel that is just part of what I do. I just meet people where they are, and then we go on the journey that makes sense to them. So yes, my program Home does all of that. So really just keep on being in these sorts of conversations, and inviting people into my world or into people like your world, and for people just to really get to really get to have a feel of this because I know how life-changing it is, and I'm so passionate.
No, that's a wonderful answer. Again, it's great that you're helping, women through, extremely tough time. My wife's just been reading, some. She's not got premenopause, but she's been reading books about premenopause, so that's probably something she'll be interested in when she listens back to this one as
Yeah.
well. I was going to ask you about how people can get in touch with you, but I think you've kind of touched on that already. But is there any other ways they can get in touch with you? Social media, for instance, like you say, if they want to get in touch with you,
Yeah.
an email address possibly.
Yeah. So I think Instagram seems to be my biggest content at the moment. So that's Becca Gardner Coach. I'm sure you'll pop these details in the show
Yes, I
notes.
will do.
Um,
Yes.
Yeah. And then my website, if you get on I think one of the biggest things is getting on my mailing list, because I send out regular information of what I'm doing and I'm always looking at ways to serve. So now I'm qualified as a Fast Like a Girl coach too. I will be kind of bringing in the body and the mind. And I feel like it's the absolute full package of really understanding our human experience and our physical body that we live in too. So yeah, just reach out if you fancy a conversation and go from there, really.
Brilliant, brilliant. Um, Finally, just last question. If you could leave every listener with one sentence about peace of mind, what would it be?
Oh, such a good question. I think what I'd love people to take away is that peace is not outside of us, it's who we are. It's kind of like it's built into us, and it's not that we need to go and do certain things to become more peaceful. The only thing that gets away with, gets in our way of peace is identifying with a chatty mind. So beneath that noise, there is just infinite possibility.
Great answer. Great answer. And I did notice your mailing list yesterday on your website when I was looking at preparing for today. So I'll separate the links. I'll put the website link up and I'll put the um, mailing list link up as well. So they're both there for people to click on
Yeah.
and sign up to. So wonderful. Well, I don't know where that time's gone. It's been about just under an hour, but I really enjoyed speaking with you today, Becca. Thank you for your time. And yeah, I'm sure a lot of people get a lot out of this conversation.
Well, I really appreciate you having me on, Luke, and hopefully we get to speak again. You can come on my podcast.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.